Why America is Great. The U.S. Constitution. Good evening. Tonight, we are going to explore one of the most influential documents in human history, the United States Constitution. This isn't just a story about old parchment or dusty legal theories. This is about a radical idea that transformed the world and continues to shape the lives of over 330 million Americans today. The Constitution of the United States stands as a testament to human ingenuity in governance. Written in 1787 and ratified in 1788, this document has survived civil war, economic depression, global conflicts, and profound social change. It remains the oldest written national constitution still in use today. That fact alone deserves our attention, but the reasons behind its longevity tell us something profound about American greatness. Let's begin with context. In the summer of 1787, 55 delegates gathered in Philadelphia. The young nation was failing under the Articles of Confederation. The federal government couldn't levy taxes, couldn't regulate interstate commerce, and couldn't enforce its own laws. States were printing their own money, imposing tariffs on each other, and threatening the unity that had been purchased with blood during the Revolutionary War. These men, whom we now call the Founding Fathers, faced a monumental task. They had to create a government strong enough to function, but limited enough to preserve liberty. They had to balance the interests of large states and small states, northern states and southern states, commercial interests and agricultural interests. They had to satisfy those who feared tyranny and those who feared chaos. What they produced was remarkable. The Constitution they drafted consisted of just 7 articles and approximately 4,400 words in its original form. Compare that to the constitutions of other nations. India's constitution contains around 146,000 words. The European Union's proposed constitution ran to 70,000 words before being rejected. The Alabama state constitution exceeds 300,000 words. The Founding Fathers understood that brevity combined with flexibility would serve the nation better than exhaustive detail. The genius of the Constitution lies in its structure. The first 3 articles establish the 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. This separation of powers was not merely an organizational choice. It was a deliberate strategy to prevent the concentration of power that had characterized monarchies and led to tyranny. Article 1 establishes Congress, the legislative branch, consisting of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House was designed to represent the people directly, with members elected every 2 years from districts based on population. The Senate was originally chosen by state legislatures, with each state receiving 2 senators regardless of size. This bicameral legislature balanced democratic representation with federal principles, ensuring that neither large states nor small states could dominate the government. The powers granted to Congress in Article 1, Section 8 are extensive but enumerated. Congress can levy taxes, borrow money, regulate commerce, coin money, establish post offices, grant patents and copyrights, raise and support armies, and declare war, among other specified powers. This enumeration was intentional. The framers wanted to create a government of limited, defined powers rather than unlimited authority. Article 2 establishes the executive branch headed by the President. The President serves as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, conducts foreign policy, appoints judges and other officials with Senate approval, and ensures that laws are faithfully executed. The creation of a single executive was controversial. Some delegates feared it would recreate monarchy. Others believed a plural executive would be too weak and indecisive. The electoral college system they devised for choosing the president reflects another compromise. Rather than direct popular vote or selection by Congress, the president would be chosen by electors appointed by each state. Each state receives electors equal to its total representation in Congress. This system still operates today, though it has been modified by the 12th Amendment and contemporary practice. As of the 2024 election, there are 538 electoral votes, with 270 needed to win the presidency. Article 3 establishes the judicial branch. It creates the Supreme Court and authorizes Congress to establish lower federal courts. The Constitution grants federal judges life tenure, subject to good behavior, and prohibits reducing their salaries while in office. These provisions were designed to ensure judicial independence. Judges would not need to curry favor with the executive or legislative branches to keep their positions or maintain their income. The Supreme Court's power of judicial review. The authority to declare laws unconstitutional isn't explicitly stated in the Constitution. It was established by Chief Justice John Marshall in the landmark 1803 case Marbury v. Madison. This power has become one of the court's most significant functions, allowing it to serve as the ultimate interpreter of constitutional meaning. Articles 4 through 7 address various structural matters: the relationship between states, the amendment process, federal supremacy, and ratification procedures. But it's the amendment process in Article 5 that has proven crucial to the Constitution's endurance. The framers knew they couldn't anticipate every future circumstance. They created a mechanism for change that was deliberately difficult but not impossible. Amendments can be proposed either by 2/3 of both houses of Congress or by a constitutional convention called by 2/3 of state legislatures. Ratification requires approval by 3/4 of state legislatures or state conventions. This high bar for amendment has shaped American constitutional development. Since 1788, over 11,000 amendments have been proposed in Congress. Only 33 have received the necessary 2/3 vote in both houses. Of these, only 27 have been ratified by the states. The first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, were ratified together in 1791. The most recent amendment concerning congressional pay was ratified in 1992, though it was originally proposed in 1789. The Bill of Rights deserves special attention. During ratification debates, anti-federalists argued that the Constitution lacked sufficient protection for individual liberties. Several states ratified the Constitution only with the understanding that a Bill of Rights would be added. James Madison, initially skeptical of the need for such amendments, shepherded them through the first Congress. These 10 amendments protect fundamental freedoms. The First Amendment protects freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. The Second Amendment addresses the right to bear arms. The Third prohibits quartering soldiers in private homes. The Fourth protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. The Fifth through Eighth Amendments establish various criminal procedure protections and rights. The Ninth states that the enumeration of certain rights doesn't mean other rights don't exist. The 10th reserves powers not delegated to the federal government, to the states, or the people. These rights have been interpreted and reinterpreted through centuries of litigation. The First Amendment, for instance, initially applied only to federal law. The 14th Amendment, ratified after the Civil War in 1868, gradually led to these protections being applied to state governments through a process called incorporation. Today, nearly all Bill of Rights protections apply to both federal and state governments. The scope of these rights continues to evolve. First Amendment jurisprudence has expanded to protect symbolic speech, commercial speech, and online expression. It has established the principle that government generally cannot engage in content-based restrictions on speech and has created exceptions for categories like incitement, true threats, and obscenity. In recent years, courts have grappled with questions about social media, campaign finance, and the rights of corporations. Second Amendment interpretation has also evolved significantly. For much of American history, courts treated it primarily as protecting a collective right related to malicious service. In 2008, the Supreme Court's decision in District of Columbia v. Heller recognized an individual right to possess firearms for self-defense. This interpretation remains contested, and debates continue about the scope of permissible gun regulations. The Fourth Amendment has adapted to technological change. Originally concerned with physical intrusions into homes and seizure of physical objects, it now addresses questions about electronic surveillance, data collection, GPS tracking, cell phone searches, and drone surveillance. The Supreme Court has grappled with when modern investigative techniques constitute searches requiring warrants. Beyond the Bill of Rights, subsequent amendments have expanded rights and reformed government structure. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The Reconstruction Amendments abolished slavery, guaranteed due process and equal protection, and prohibited racial discrimination in voting. The 19th Amendment extended voting rights to women. The 24th abolished poll taxes. The 26th lowered the voting age to 18. These amendments reflect America's ongoing struggle to live up to its founding ideals. The Constitution originally contained compromises with slavery, including the 3/5 clause counting enslaved people as 3/5 of a person for representation purposes, and the Fugitive Slave Clause requiring return of escaped slaves. It took a civil war and constitutional amendments to eradicate these provisions and begin addressing racial injustice. The expansion of voting rights tells a similar story. The original Constitution left voting qualifications to states. In practice, this meant that only white male property owners could vote in most places. The 15th Amendment prohibited racial discrimination in voting, though it would take the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to make this promise real in many states. The 19th Amendment secured women's suffrage. The 24th Amendment eliminated poll taxes that had been used to disenfranchise poor and minority voters. The 26th Amendment, ratified during the Vietnam War, recognized that those old enough to fight were old enough to vote. Today, voting rights remain a contested issue. Recent years have seen debates over voter identification laws, early voting access, mail-in voting procedures, and felon disenfranchisement. Approximately 4.6 million Americans are currently unable to vote due to felony convictions. Though policies vary widely by state, the Constitution's system of checks and balances continues to function, though sometimes messily. Congress can pass laws, but the President can veto them, and Congress can override vetoes with a 2/3 majority in both houses. The President negotiates treaties, but the Senate must ratify them. The President appoints judges and executive officials, but the Senate must confirm them. Congress can impeach and remove the President, Vice President, and other officials. The courts can declare laws and executive actions unconstitutional. These checks have proven significant in contemporary governance. Presidential vetoes remain relatively common, with recent presidents issuing dozens of vetoes during their terms. The Senate's confirmation power has become increasingly consequential, particularly for Supreme Court nominations. The confirmation process for Justice Brett Kavanaugh in 2018 and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson in 2022 demonstrated how contentious these proceedings have become. Impeachment, intended as a check against executive abuse of power, remains rare but significant. The House has impeached 4 presidents: Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton twice, and Donald Trump twice. Only Johnson and Clinton were tried by the Senate during their presidencies, and both were acquitted. Trump was tried twice, acquitted once while in office, and tried once after leaving office, also resulting in acquittal. The courts continue to exercise judicial review, striking down both federal and state laws. In recent terms, the Supreme Court has issued major decisions on abortion rights, gun rights, affirmative action, executive power, and administrative law. The court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization in 2022 overturned Roe v. Wade and returned abortion regulation to the states, demonstrating the court's power to fundamentally reshape constitutional interpretation. The Constitution's federalism, the division of power between national and state governments, remains vibrant and contentious. States retain significant authority over education, criminal law, family law, property law, and much else. This allows for policy experimentation. States have served as laboratories of democracy, testing approaches to healthcare, criminal justice reform, environmental regulation, and social policy. Currently, states vary dramatically in their policies. Some states have legalized recreational marijuana. The federal government still classifies it as a Schedule I controlled substance. Some states have expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. Others have not. Some states have enacted strict gun control laws. Others have adopted constitutional carry laws requiring no permit for gun possession. Some states protect abortion access. Others have banned or severely restricted it. This diversity reflects both the Constitution's federal structure and deep disagreements among Americans about fundamental issues. It can lead to tension and confusion, but it also allows Americans to live under laws more closely aligned with their values and allows states to learn from each other's experiences. The Commerce Clause, granting Congress power to regulate interstate commerce, has been a major source of federal authority expansion. Initially interpreted narrowly, it was broadly construed during the New Deal era and afterward to support federal regulation of virtually any activity affecting interstate commerce. Recent Supreme Court decisions have imposed some limits, but federal commerce power remains extensive. Contemporary constitutional debates often center on the scope of federal power versus state sovereignty. Does the federal government have authority to require individuals to purchase health insurance? Can it restrict state immigration enforcement? Can it preempt state environmental regulations? These questions don't have obvious answers, and courts continue to grapple with them. The Constitution also addresses foreign policy and war powers. Congress has the power to declare war, but the President serves as Commander-in-Chief. This division has created ongoing tension. The United States hasn't formally declared war since World War II, yet has engaged in major military operations in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. The War Powers Resolution of 1973 attempted to limit presidential war-making, but its effectiveness remains debatable. The treaty power provides another example of constitutional division of authority. The President negotiates treaties, but they require approval by 2/3 of the Senate. This requirement has led presidents to increasingly rely on executive agreements, which don't require Senate approval, but may be more easily reversed by future presidents. The Iran nuclear deal negotiated by President Obama and withdrawn from by President Trump exemplifies this dynamic. The Constitution's provisions for its own amendment highlight both its flexibility and stability. The high bar for amendment has prevented hasty changes while allowing adaptation to changing circumstances. Some proposed amendments have come close to ratification but fallen short. The Equal Rights Amendment, prohibiting sex discrimination, passed Congress in 1972 but has not been ratified by the required 3/4 of states, though debates about its status continue. The amendment process's difficulty has led to constitutional development through interpretation rather than formal amendment. The Constitution doesn't explicitly mention privacy rights, administrative agencies, the Air Force, or countless other features of modern government. These have been accommodated through interpretation and practice. This interpretive flexibility raises questions about constitutional meaning. Originalists argue the Constitution should be interpreted according to its original public meaning. Living constitutionalists argue it should be interpreted in light of contemporary values and circumstances. These competing philosophies shape judicial appointments and decisions. The current Supreme Court includes 6 justices appointed by Republican presidents and 3 appointed by Democratic presidents. The court has recently moved in a more conservative direction, overturning precedents and limiting federal regulatory authority. These shifts demonstrate how constitutional interpretation changes with court composition, raising questions about the relationship between law and politics. Despite these debates and changes, the Constitution's core structure has proven remarkably durable. The United States has never experienced a successful coup, military takeover, or suspension of constitutional government. Presidential elections have occurred on schedule every 4 years since 1788. Even during civil war and global conflict, power has transferred peacefully from one president to another, with only the events surrounding January 6, 2021, seriously threatening this tradition. This stability shouldn't be taken for granted. many constitutions have failed. France is on its fifth republic. Latin American nations have experienced numerous coups and constitutional replacements. Even older democracies have faced constitutional crises and reforms. The U.S. Constitution's longevity reflects both its design and Americans' commitment to constitutional governance. That commitment has been tested repeatedly. The Civil War nearly destroyed the Union. The Great Depression challenged faith in democratic capitalism. World War II required unprecedented government mobilization. The Civil Rights Movement forced confrontation with constitutional promises unfulfilled. The Watergate scandal threatened executive accountability. Recent years have seen intense polarization and challenges to democratic norms. Through these trials, the Constitution has provided a framework for resolution and adaptation. It didn't prevent these crises, but it provided mechanisms for addressing them. Amendment, judicial review, elections, and the diffusion of power across institutions and levels of government. The Constitution's influence extends beyond American borders. It served as a model for many other nations' constitutions, though most have not adopted all its features. Presidential systems are now common in Latin America. Judicial review has spread globally. Bills of rights are now nearly universal. The idea of a written constitution limiting government power has become a global norm. Yet the Constitution also reflects uniquely American features: its federalism, its presidential system, its relatively weak party system, its individualistic rights framework. These characteristics shape American politics in ways that distinguish the United States from other democracies. American constitutional culture emphasizes individual rights, limited government, and skepticism of authority. This culture has produced both tremendous innovation and significant challenges. It has fostered entrepreneurship, free expression, and social mobility. It has also contributed to resistance to collective action, inequality, and difficulty addressing problems requiring coordinated government response. As of 2024, the United States faces significant constitutional questions. What limits, if any, exist on presidential power? How should the First Amendment apply to social media platforms? What gun regulations are consistent with the Second Amendment? How should courts balance religious liberty against anti-discrimination principles? What role should race play in college admissions and other contexts? How should AI and emerging technologies be regulated within constitutional constraints? These questions lack clear answers. Americans disagree sharply about constitutional interpretation and values. These disagreements sometimes threaten social cohesion. Yet the Constitution provides a framework for debating these questions, making collective decisions, and revising those decisions if they prove unwise. The Constitution's greatness lies not in perfection, but in its capacity for self-correction. It has been amended to eliminate slavery, extend voting rights, and expand liberty. It can be interpreted differently as circumstances and values change. It distributes power to prevent its abuse while enabling effective governance. It balances national unity with local diversity. It protects individual rights while allowing collective self-government. These are difficult balances to strike, and American history shows many failures alongside successes. But the Constitution's endurance through more than 2 centuries of dramatic change, its influence on constitutional democracy worldwide, and its continued relevance to contemporary debates demonstrates something genuinely remarkable about American constitutional design. The Constitution isn't just a historical document. It's a living framework that shapes American government and society every day. When citizens vote, exercise free speech, practice their religion, or challenge government action in court, they're engaging with constitutional rights. When Congress debates legislation, the President makes decisions, or judges issue rulings. They're operating within constitutional structures and constraints. Understanding the Constitution helps us understand America itself, its strengths, its struggles, its aspirations, and its contradictions. It explains why American government operates as it does. why American political debates take the forms they do, and why Americans have the rights and responsibilities they have. The Constitution makes America neither perfect nor beyond criticism. But it represents a remarkable achievement in human self-governance, an attempt to create a system that balances order, and liberty, unity, and diversity, continuity, and change. That attempt, now stretching across more than 2 centuries, represents something genuinely worth celebrating about America. As we face contemporary challenges, we would do well to remember both the Constitution's wisdom and its limitations. It provides tools for addressing our problems, but doesn't guarantee success. That requires wisdom, virtue, and commitment from citizens and leaders. The Constitution creates opportunities for greatness, but doesn't compel it. What makes America great, ultimately, is not just the Constitution itself, but the ongoing effort to fulfill its promises and live up to its ideals. Thank you.